localities about how girls, young girls especially, have the responsibility to be heard and to work towards our goal, stopping climate change. And now I have the honor to present the special representative of the UN Secretary General, Nayat. And well, I'm very proud of being in this place. So yeah, now we will hear him. And yeah, now we will see. Oh, sorry, I am a bit nervous, but she will present today the inform about how climate change affects violence against children. Now she will give us a brief statement. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophia. You have not to be nervous. I have to be nervous today. I want to tell you, to all of you, really a warm welcome, because to this dialogue that for me it's really interactive, and I am sure that it will be passionate, vibrant, productive, and really interactive. And the main purpose today is not delivering statements, is really to hear you, to listen you, and to learn from you, and also to make sure that what you are telling is really embedded in my work, in my advocacy, because for me, you are strong key partners. And I want also to use this opportunity to welcome our partners that help us to organize this event: Child Rights Connect, Tremendous, COVID Under-19, Terre des Hommes, and World Organization of Scouts. And I want also to tell many thanks to the wonderful moderators that are also strong activists: Sophia, Michelle, Lilith, Brian, and Maya. I will be very brief, because when I saw the video, I am not sure that I have to add a lot. Why a report on climate crisis, and also why a report on climate crisis showing that it's harming, children? And we saw many things regarding, all the forms. Climate crisis harming, children. And I think we saw a lot during the video, and droughts, floods, storms, many things that impact the health, the mental health, the living condition, the protection for many children. All of children are affected. And the most vulnerable are really hit hardest. And we know, and you showed in this video that it's wonderful, many forms of violence really that could affect children. Children because of displacement, because of lack of access to water, because of lack of access to education, because of lack of access also to protective and healthy environments, are really more at risk to be victims of various forms of violence, such as, you highlighted it, child labor, child marriage. This is really important, regarding also the fact that it's impacting also the risk of children who are displaced, to really lose their families, to be victims of trafficking, of smuggling. And, we know that most of them, like girls, like, the most poor children, like those who are living in remote areas, like indigenous children, like children from minorities, are also most affected. So there is a huge, climate crisis is a threat multiplier of violence against children. And it is why we need to make sure that it's really embedded in the responses of all these policy makers that are currently dealing with the climate crisis, not seeing only, as you highlighted in the video, from the perspective of environment and protecting the planet. Yes, sure, but really to make it people-centered and children-centered. This is really very important. Why is this also today? Why is this meeting? And this is really important. And why also this report? Because you, children and young people, took the lead many years ago, and you are still taking the lead. You were at the forefront of the initiative. You did peaceful protests, global march. You are in all the parts of the world, despite, your living condition, even the most vulnerable children, reminding us that this is a climate crisis that needs really to be tackled, and you are calling and recalling for a healthy, safe environment free from violence. And for me, this report is a huge tool really to amplify your voices, to make the policy makers listening to you, and to make sure that all their responses will take into account, children's perspective. This is why I am really happy to be with you today and to listen to you. Over to you, Sophia.
Thank you so much for your statement, Nayat. And also thank you for your admiring work. I really appreciate that you're taking children to the focus point. So yeah, I really admire that. And now we will be coming video messages. Many children sent us from all around the globe. And also the questions other children dropped in the Q&A box. So now we will go ahead with the first set of videos, and Nayat will answer after this.
My name is Shem F. Segovia, a 14-year-old child worker, CAC member, and child rights advocate from Ghana, Philippines. With all due respect, how can the SDG reach the grassroots level, and how can we children actively participate to ensure that there is progress?
The question to the UN is what exactly they are doing in regards of climate change that directly helps children or involves children.
Why does the UN not involve children in climate change matters and it affects them directly?
So I have to respond to the question, or the video was stopped before the end? But maybe I can start responding to the question. So the question is, first, I am happy to see, and I really very happy to see child workers also as activists, and also many children. And I think what we are highlighting here, two questions I heard, and if I am not wrong, really how you can use also the SDGs and reach, at grassroots level, to use this opportunity really to respond to, violence against children, exploitation of children, but also the climate crisis. The other thing is about in UN, what is UN doing, directly to help children and to involve children, and what does not the UN, why does not the UN involve children, in climate matters? I think what's first, regarding SDGs, I think you have, all of you, and in many, many places around the world, each country has to present what we call the voluntary national review, a report on what was done. And here, it's really important that children, and in many countries at grassroots level, many children are already involved, in this review process. And I think it's important if you continue, and I know that you have many, many networks worldwide that are working on this issue regarding, involving children in the VNR process. And I think it's really important that you continue doing it and taking into account the link between the climate crisis and the protection of children. This is really important. The other, the video is going to continue. So.
My name is Shem F. Segovia, a 14-year-old child worker, CAC member, and child rights advocate from Ghana, Philippines. With all due respect, how can the SDG reach the grassroots level, and how can we children actively participate to ensure that there is progress?
The question to the UN is what exactly they are doing in regards of climate change that directly helps children or involves children?
Why does the UN not involve children in climate change matters and it affects them directly?
Now the video, I think, was complete, so now you can really answer the question.
Many thanks, Sophia. So I think I already start responding to SDGs. I just want to let you know that I am working with each year with all the countries that are presenting their VNR regarding the implementation of the SDGs. And I am pushing them to involve children, in the process of reviewing it, and to have really consultation. And it's done more and more in many, many countries. So please feel free in your countries really to reach the NGOs you are working, to reach the UN country team, and mainly UNICEF, to make sure that you are on board in this consultation. This is one. Regarding what UN is doing, what I want to let you know is that it's the climate crisis, and addressing the climate crisis is one of the priority of the Secretary General. Since I am here since 3 years, and it is always reminding us really to take the measures and also to fulfill their commitment, because states did many commitments. In this regard, they adopt a resolution, and it was recent, for really a healthy and sustainable environment. The Child Rights Committee also made specific comment regarding that. But it's not enough, to be very frank with you. We need to do more, because we can have many resolutions, we can have many papers, we can have many commitments, and I think it's important what children need to see its action. And here we need to do more. And I think your mobilization, your voices, and your action need to be amplified and to be seen and to be shown, and to make sure that it's really kept even within the COP27 that will be held in November. And it's important to make sure that children's voices will be heard. Why UN is not involving more and more children? I will be very frank with you. It's very difficult. It's a big fight to make really children, visible and being part of all these decision-making processes. We are seeing it increasing. The problem we are facing, we have more youth than children. And what we are doing is to make sure that children, even under 15 years old, are involved, as well as youth. But also I say this opportunity to really reach the youth people, to make sure that also in their mobilization, they are reaching, children that are less than 15 years, and to make sure that their voices, and mainly the most vulnerable, are heard. So over to you, Sophia. I hope I respond to the question.
Yes, for me at least, it was a very clear response, so thank you very much. And in relation to what you just said, I know from firsthand, including children in bigger instances is quite difficult. For example, in the COP27, as you said, my organization wanted to participate, and it's going to, but
we lost you, Sophia.
From the Q&A chat, which says, what are some of the solutions being discussed on climate change and violence?
Regarding, the solution, to be very frank with you, violence was not one of the priority in all the global and regional discussion. It's more about, the green, about, drought. It's more technical than really people-centered. It's more about how we are going to protect the planet. And I think the main important thing, and why it's important, why we did this report, is really to explain that we need really, when we are addressing the environment, and with many, many COPs, because it's a 27-1, really to never forget that we have people. And what it's important is the response has to be people-centered, but it has also to be children-centered. Why child-centered? Because they are the present, but they are also the future generation. So they are the least responsible, and they are paying the high tribute. So we need to have them on board and to make sure they are part of the solution and to take into account all these impacts on child protection. This is really very, very important to make sure that it's embedded in all these policies, these plans, this mitigation, because you have a lot of plans to make sure that children are really at the heart of these responses. And this is why we are doing that. And this is why this report is done, really to remind all these policymakers to not forget you.
Exactly. I completely support your words. So thank you very much. And as you said, the point of view of children and young adults is very important because after all, we are the generations that will live firsthand the impacts of climate change, and we are already doing. So I really think it's extremely important that we are included because our point of view is quite different to the adults one, and that makes us a richer perspective on how it's affecting, but also in how to solve it. So I think, as you said, the point of view of us is really important. And well, that's my opinion. So now I will pass the microphone to Michelle, the next moderator.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Michelle. I am 14 years old from Kenya. A trained journalist at Mtoto News and a child activist against climate change and child violence. I also run a project involving children, especially girls in the slums affected by climate change. We help them get their basic needs such as food, water, and sanitary towels, whereby we have portable stations for the girls to be able to access sanitary towels. I also host a session where the girls are able to talk about their issues, and it's a safe place to open. Before we continue, I would like to remind you that all microphones and videos are turned off in order to protect the identity of our children. And the chats have also been disabled just to make sure that our children are not approached by strangers. But if you have any questions or suggestions, you can just drop them at the Q&A box. So now I would like to introduce a question from a pre-recorded video, and Najat, you can answer after it. Please play question 2.
More responsible and more accountable. This is what we call climate justice. I know that it's not easy to deal with, but it's one big, important, issue really to deal with, and it's highlighted in the report. And I think currently in all our discussion, in all our meetings, and even within the UN system, is also how we can make sure that all the parties, and I hope in the COP27, because it's all the parties who are on board, all the countries, that really this issue will be dealt in a transparent and accountable manner. This is really one main important thing. The other point that you highlight is about transparency regarding and management of all that. And I think it's important, it's not only about UN, it's also about countries, how also they are more and more transparent and accountable to their citizenship, and mainly also to children, because they are the first responsible to ensure protection, and development and really well-being for all children living within their countries. This is their commitment. And UN is here to remind them their commitment, to provide them support when it's needed, to raise awareness, to help also, and the civil society, to make sure that children and civil society and the most vulnerable, are empowered, are able to speak up and duly protected. And this is it's not an easy task. And it is what I am doing during my country visits, in my meeting with states, and with the support of civil society and with your support, because currently, as children rights activists, environmental activists, you are doing a lot and making and raising awareness and making, policy makers and decision makers, reminding them their commitments. And regarding, raising awareness related to the behavior, I think I saw what you are doing in many countries, and even in Pakistan, when you are many child and young-led initiative, when you are taking the lead, explaining how we can really protect the environment. This is important, but in the same time, how you can change the behavior regarding, violence, regarding violence against girls, regarding gender discrimination, regarding children on streets, regarding children workers, regarding children with disability, regarding children from minorities, regarding indigenous children. You are doing a lot. But to be very frank, it's not enough. And it is why today we are meeting again, because we need to repeat and highlight and speak up. And this is really, it's important. And it is why this meeting with you today is really important, not only to justify what I am doing, because I am only a tool that has to be used by you, but what is important is how we can move forward, how we can make really the political agenda at global, regional level, and local level, children really as a priority. I hope I responded to your question. If it's not clear, don't hesitate really to ask me again. Michelle.
Thank you so much, Najat. I agree that children should feel belonged and should have a voice, and also that we should do more so that our children can be able to speak. So there's a question from the audience, and the question is, how can child participation be embedded in coming up with a lasting solution to the effects of climate crisis?
I think it's a big question, child participation, and today, for me, child participation, is a cross-cutting and high priority for me, because as I told in the beginning, and it's not a slogan, and I am not lying, children are really, really key partners. I was working all my life with children, on street, in jail, in hospital, in very bad condition. And I learned a lot from them. So I think what is important, you are not only, victims of all the crises, but you are strong part of the solution. And in many cases, really worldwide, your solutions are more concrete and really very effective. So we need to have you on board, and we need to make sure that participation is really embedded in the work of UN, in the work, of policymakers, to make sure that you are involved in the decision-making process, and to make sure when you are expressing yourself through social media, through protesting peacefully, that you are protected. It's a huge task, but we need to continue. And it is why, for me, what I am going to do with all what I am hearing, I will present on next Friday my report to the GA with all the states representatives. And I promise, as I did for my previous report to the Human Rights Council, I will amplify and I will give, a summary about all the main issues that were highlighted by you during this meeting. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much for your answer. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and it's a real inspiration. So now I'd like to pass the microphone to Lily.
Hello, my name is Lilith and I'm 8 years old and I'm from England, and
So Lily, it's wonderful. You are the most aged one. Huh? So you are from England, and you have a question for me or not?
yeah, we're gonna play the video question.
Okay.
How can United Nations ensure that in 2025 there will be no more climate crisis and hunger among children?
How do you see the future of climate change and violence against children being solved?
We find that children living in these marginalized areas are forced to go long distances to find pasture for their animals. And also you find that they also strive so that they can get food because of a lot of drought in those areas. And that was my question. Thank you.
viven en Pitoca, un lugar sin agua. ¿Qué podemos hacer respecto con mis amigos?
Could any proactive moves be made so that children worldwide are safe from violence due to future crises?
So, Lilith, your questions are hard. You have many questions, and regarding by 2025, how we can really put an end to climate crisis, to hunger. And also, I want to use this opportunity to remind also that by 2030, normally we have to put an end to all forms of violence against all children in all settings. And to be very frank with you, I am personally, between despair and hope, because when I am seeing the ongoing crisis worldwide, the climate crisis, the food insecurity, the wars the conflicts in many areas, the number of children that are left behind more and more, who are living on streets, who have no access to water, who have no access to school, who have no access to protection. A lot. Children who are living on streets, children who are deprived of liberty, and children, who are really trafficked, and so on. It's huge. I am really despaired. But in the same time, I have a wonderful hope when I am in front of you, when I am listening to you, when I am seeing that you are wonderfully resilient, claiming, speaking up, doing, acting, showing that it's possible. And to be very frank, if we need to end and to keep our promise by 2025 and by 2030, we need really not to stop as UN, as policymaker, to stop blah, 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 speaking papers and so on, and resolution and so on. And we need really to act and to show that it's possible and to have you on board, because we cannot really find solution without having you, because you are wonderful actors of change. And I am not lying. You can change behavior. You can change, decision makers, proposal. You are part, and you show it so very, very interestingly. And I am really, what I can tell, my belief and my trust is that you can change the world. And we are tools for you and with you to make it happen. But this is my hope. But to be very frank with you, we need to do more, and we need to be on the same board and to keep not only during this meeting, but having strong social media, and don't give up. continue speaking. And I promise you to continue amplifying your voice, having you on board. This is my promise. Over to you, Lilith.
Thank you. And I really agree with what you said. And I think by 2050 we can change the climate crisis too. And now I'm gonna pass the mic to Brian.
Thank you, Lilith, and also to tell us that you have a hope and you can change the world. You think that we can change the world by 2025. So I hope so, and we will do more than we can with you and for you to make it happen. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Lilith. My name is Brian. I am 17 years old. And I come from Kenya. I am a child rights advocate as well as a climate change activist. I am associated to Children's News International, which is basically an organization that fights for children's rights by giving them a voice through media. I'm also affiliated to the Pan-African Child-led Organization, that is an organization that is aimed to basically connect the African child to change Africa and make it a better place. So I would like to introduce the next question for you, Najat, that they focus on gender. They focus on gender, and I'd like you to respond immediately after the question. After the question has been presented, but I guess I also have a question of my own. I'd like to know, in terms of direct representation, how exactly is the UN working to make sure that children are actually represented directly? That is, they can actually, like, maybe even in the special office of children, of representative of children, maybe you can have a child there to represent the children directly. Is there anything that can be worked on there? But yeah, and Kate, maybe you can play video for as Najat waits to respond.
Here in Kenya, climate change has made it harder for families to provide for their children, thus making it harder for a girl to access sanitary pads.
Climate change can really affect children, such as mostly affecting girls. When drought happens in like a county like Kajiado County, there's no rainfall and livestock end up dying and they have no vegetation or anything to eat. And so they find a girl in the village to sell off to a man above age, and she's underage. And she has to go through FGM, which is basically her being cut. And it's really painful for her. So then they sell her off, and it's kind of unfair because she doesn't want it to happen. She hasn't gone through like half of her life. She's on like 4/4 of her life and all that. So if we take care of our climate, then we can really help the girls and the children that go through abuse or violence or even trauma, such as being sold off underage. So we should really stop this climate change, as I call it, climate crisis, and improve on, like, understand it's not just about, you know, the trees and the climate. It's also about what affects, like, what the weather does with other people. Yeah.
واحد أنت كامرأة برأيك العنف بأثر على الامرأة أكثر من الرجل؟
What is the United Nations doing to address challenges that the girls face as a result of climate change? Examples being early marriages and FGM.
What plans are on the way to support child or girls-led efforts in poor countries like the Gambia to address child marriage resulting as a result of climate change-related problems such as flooding and drought?
So I will respond first to the question from the video, Brian, and I will respond to your question also. First, it's more about, you know, all the violence, gender-based violence, and mainly in some countries where social norms are really very discriminatory against women. child marriage, FGM, regarding the lack of access to education, sexual exploitation, all the power imbalance and these patriarchal societies and all these social norms. And that really made girls in a very, very difficult position. Coming from Morocco, I know that this is a big challenge regarding, all the status of women and girls in many African and Asian and Arabic countries. And if we add to that the climate crisis that really impacts the living condition, and girls are one of the most who are paying the high tribute because they have to look for water, drop out from school, child labor, child marriage, all these things you already described. How we can make it, I think what it's important, we need to deal with climate crisis, but we deal also with all the already pre-existing violence against girls. And I think this is important. It's really, and here we come back to the Child Rights Convention, we come back to the African Charter, to the global SDGs, Agenda 2030, the African Agenda, so many, many commitments. But I think we need to act at various fronts at the same time. We need really to make sure that girls have access to education. This is very important. We need to make sure that all these social norms really that are not justified by religion. I am coming from an Arabo-Islamic country, and FGM is not in the Quran. And really to make sure. And also, even child marriage, you have the recent fatwa from Al-Azhar who really raised the age to 18 years. So we need to stop justifying it by poverty and by religion, because for me, it's not an excuse. The other thing that it's important is also regarding girls' empowerment. And I am really proud because I was in Chad, I was in Niger, and I was in Jordan, and I was in Lebanon, and I am in many other countries of Latin America, and I am going to Morocco, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Senegal, and so on. But just to let you know, I am meeting wonderful groups of girls, super girls that are fighting, raising awareness, changing despite the barriers they are facing. And it is possible. We can make it because many countries can make it. It's not only about laws. We need laws, but we need access to justice. We need access to education, and we need empowerment of girls and women. This is very important. And most importantly is all these persons who are exploiting girls and boys need to be accountable from justice. This is really important. So regarding that, I know you know that you have within UN the Spotlight Initiative. We are working with UNICEF, UN Women, UNFPA, UNHCR, all on board really to make sure that the girls and women and girls are really, their rights are really duly taken into account. And regarding the question that I am coming from an Islamic country, an Arabo-Islamic countries, and violence against women is higher than against men. This is one question. I think we can make change. I am coming from a country when we made change. The law changed. The early child marriage is prohibited. It still continues, to be very frank, but we are pushing because it's not only about laws, it's also about providing alternatives to education, to social protection from the poor families. We have no FGM and we have rights. So, but what we need a strong movement that is pushing, making policymakers, religious leaders, and all on board really to explain that it's not acceptable. This is really important. And regarding your last question, Brian, regarding child representativity within a UN system, and within my office, for example, I have a big concern regarding the representativity, to be very frank with you, because sure that the most forgotten, the most invisible are really represented. This is really important to have all them on board. Children on streets, children behind walls, children in camps, children, indigenous children, children with disabilities. So for me, what I am doing is really using all the networks that are already existing. We did a mapping of all the child-led and youth networks and initiative, and to build bridges among themselves. And I think it's really, really important to make sure that all children are really represented. And today, for me, it's important to have you on board. And I am open, when you want really to reach us. We are open, we are a small team, but we are committed. Please feel free, reach us and propose what we can do together. And I am open to discuss all the avenues. But I think we need to be very careful about children who are representing the others. We need to make sure that you have the geographical representativity, but also the most vulnerable have to be represented, because they are children and they have rights and they have ideas, despite the fact that they are living in very, very difficult situations. I hope I respond to your question, Brian.
Thank you so much. And I guess now I have to introduce a question from the audience. We have a person in the audience asking, how does the UN raise awareness throughout the world about violence against children due to climate change? Najat?
Yes. Regarding climate crisis and violence against children, it is what we are doing. It's regarding the fact that the report I made, it is why I made it, because I was seeing that violence against children and the link between violence against children and climate crisis as a threat multiplier of violence against children really were not taking into account. But I was happy also to hear that the special also rapporteur on violence against women and girls will also present a report also dedicated on really how climate crisis is impacting. You have also the special rapporteur on environmental rights who did it also. So we are within UN, we have many, many entry points to make sure that violence against children and its links with the climate crisis is really dealt within the political agenda. And currently we are pushing to make sure that it will be dealt during the COP27. It's not an easy task, but we are pushing. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Najat. And yes, I guess the report is actually very important. And I guess we as children should get to check out the report. So I personally can't wait to see you present it. I'm very anxious for it, by the way. And for me, I'm very happy to see the representation that we're getting from you, that is. And we'd love to see more and more as we develop. I mean, the representation that is now is not as it was before. It keeps on increasing. And I guess we can only say we want you to keep on adding and adding up. Najat also had you mention that you're traveling countries, and we just want you to love to host you here in Kenya. You can come and join us. We have invited you officially. You can come and join us here in Kenya. From me though, I'd love to pass on the mic to our next moderator. Okay, yes.
Brian, just before, I will be happy really to visit you in Kenya, because I know what you are doing as really child and environmental rights activists. And really, I am impressed by what you are doing. And you are in my target, just to let you know.
Thank you so much, Najat. I guess now I'm even more excited. I can't wait to hear from you. But as I was saying, guys, I guess we'll be moving on to the last moderator of the event today. I would love to pass on to the mic to Maya Natu. Hey, Maya.
Hey, Brian. Thank you so much. My name is Maya Natu. I'm 16 years old and I come from Greenland, but is now in France. I'm a climate change activist and a children's rights activist, and I'm part of what we call the Children's Advisory Team. In the Children's Advisory Team, there is about 12 other members around the world who's a part of this. The Children's Advisory Team is about making new government guidelines about climate change's relationship with children's rights. Now I would like to invite Najat to answer the next video question.
Hay muchos niños y niñas que viven cerca de dinosaurios, que tiran mucho humo negro. Las llaman zona de sacrificio. Eso afectaría sus vidas?
जो इंडिया में इन्वायरमेंटल सेफगार्ड पॉलिसी है या फिर जो सिटी प्लानिंग है उसमें जो हम लोगों का राइट्स है वो आप लोग क्या सेफगार्ड करने का सोच सकते हैं और क्या हम लोग उसमें
Thank you, Maya. It's really important because it's a link with what I was just telling during my session with Brian, is about the representativity of the most, vulnerable children. And here we had good example, regarding, children with disability and the example of deaf, regarding children on streets, regarding, vulnerable communities who are living in sacrifice zone. So this is really important, and it is our duty and our role to make sure that these children are not really forgotten because they are not speaking up, because they are not counted, because they are outside the data. And we have to be very, very careful about it. And it's one of my main goal when I am really telling about and highlighting child participation and involvement is to make sure that they are on board. Because yes, sound pollution, is a problem of inclusion of all these people who are outside the system, who are excluded by the system, how we can make sure that they're embedded. And it is why for me, the representativity and the meeting today like that, even through video, to make sure that they are really, really heard, but also not only heard and forgotten, but also their concerns and their solution and their proposal are taken into account. And also in the policy making decision, their concern are really taking into account, and they are parts, they are included in all these responses, the protection system responses, the climate crisis responses. This is really important. And I hope, Maya, and I want to congratulate you because you are doing these guidelines linking children's rights to climate rights and environmental rights. And I think it will be very, very useful to never forget that all these children, that are not visible and forgotten are really, really taking into account. And to be very frank with you and to swear to your responses through the video, it's not an easy task to make sure that you are on board, all the vulnerable children. But this is my duty and our duty of all the UN system, because normally it's all the rights for all people independently of their status. And sometimes it's forgotten by policymakers because they are not visible. So it's our role to make sure that they are on board and to make sure that all the policies are really child sensitive. And when we are speaking about child sensitive, it means all children, not only those who are able to speak, those who are able to claim, but those who are really have no possibility to claim, have no possibility to tell what they are living. And I want really to tell them, to the last persons who were in the video, that I am really admiring, their resilience and the fact that despite the barriers and living in a very, very hard condition, they are still fighting, claiming, and they are strong child rights activists. And I can let them know that they can count on me really to highlight their voices, their concern, and to make them visible. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you so much, Najat. I agree with what you're saying, especially when I think about how far it took for, as an example, me to get to be heard as I am today, because I come from a place where it is a huge island, but only with 55,000 population, and there is children who's overseen time by time, even by the ones that we are the closest to. Therefore, for me, it was incredibly difficult to come to work with the Children's Advisory Team, to have worked with the UNICEF. It has been an incredible amount of struggle, an incredible amount of work, but I'm so happy that there were actually people who were there to listen when we needed them to, because I didn't participate in these climate change things to be just another logo or something like that. I did it because there were problems where I came from, and it escalated to become something so much more, and I learned so much from it. Therefore, I also think that now that I work with the Children's Advisory Team, I'm so happy that the fact that we are working with the Committee of the Rights of the Child on participating in developing the COP27, I think it's very, 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 very important that you continue listening to children, to Indigenous children, to children with disabilities, children who is not in the not in a place where they have access to the social media, those things, that you target them as well as everyone else. And after saying my opinion, I would like to ask you a question from the audience, which is, how do you plan to help those children who are in countries suffering from the most adverse effects of climate change? Where is it affecting their education and social life?
First, Maya, I want to congratulate you, because you are a wonderful example of, how, with strong, resilience, with strong courage, and you make it possible, and you are speaking, coming from, a place where it's not easy to speak, and to become, a strong advocate, but activist, but also not only activist speaking, but acting. And I think this is important. And really, I want to congratulate you, because for me, this is the most important thing. And you are doing it very well. Regarding, your big question, how I, address, I think it's not only me or my mandate, but, as I told since the beginning, it's a small mandate, but it's a strong advocacy mandate. And what is important is how we are mobilizing, all this building here in New York, all the headquarters, because you have many, many UN agencies, to make sure that we are addressing this issue about, how climate crisis is impacting the most vulnerable, making them, living in worse condition, and to make sure that they are really taking into account in the response. So this is very important, because in many countries, unfortunately, you have these children are living in already fragile and poor countries and unsafe countries, and you add the climate crisis and it becomes worse. So it's an extreme priority regarding, the response from UN, but also the response from the rich countries regarding the cooperation, how they can really support the countries to strengthen the systems, to strengthen the services that allow children, and the most vulnerable of them, have access to education, to health, mental health, reproductive health, to justice, to social protection, to protection mechanisms, to make sure that these children really have access to well-being and development. It's not an easy task, because you have to do it here, meeting with all the key stakeholders here. During the country visits, it's really important. It's a strong moment when I am meeting, policymakers, but also children and all the key actors. and also within the regional organization, within the financial institution. But currently also we are planning to have strong meeting in Africa with all the multinational and the big enterprises and the big businesses to make sure also that they are aware about their impact and how they can really reverse and being more protective, but also being more accountable and also being part of, a people-centered development that it's life cycle, based on a life cycle approach, and start with children since the early childhood, leaving no child behind. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you so much for your response. I am very glad to hear that you're having so much focus on the children who has the worst of the worst conditions, because as you said before, they have a safe place to be, that they have water, clean water and food, because it quite literally is a part of the children's rights, the right for education, the right for right for clean water and all that. So, lastly from me, I would like to thank everyone who's been participating in this. We are so happy to hear all of the amazing questions and hear about the amazing videos. And now I would like to invite Najat to say some final words. Over to you, Najat.
I'm not sure it's me to provide the final words. If you allow me, I will change the run of show. And I want to give you the floor. First, I want just to tell you many thanks and to let you know that it's not the first round and we will continue. But if you allow me and it's fine with you, I want to give to each moderator, 1 minute, if one word or one sentence, what I can bring with me, on Friday, I will present to all the wonderful states. So just if you could provide me with one sentence that I can bring with me, and I promise to deliver it. So over to you. Who will start? Maybe Maya, because you have the mic open.
Right. If there's a sentence that I would want you to give over to the others, that would probably be: do everything in your power to not forget, as an example, the indigenous children, because I've tried that one too many times, and the children who is disabled, try to incorporate as many perspectives as possible from as many children as you can.
Well noted. Sophia.
Thank you. Please represent the young girls like me and all my friends from the Action Platform. We are very, I forgot the word, but happy to have this place to tell you what we want. And I think that's a representation of young girls and all our actions that are maybe not seen by everyone. Maybe they are not that big for the adults, for the people in the government, but for us, it's a work that we give much time to, and we want it to grow. So please, if you could help us to get more instances, more places in which we can participate, in which girls can have their voice heard. That's it, I think.
Thank you, Sophia. Michelle. Brian. They disappear? Lilith.
We had stepped out for a bit.
Okay.
Hey Najat, could you like rephrase the question, please?
Brian, I was telling that you have a last sentence. You want me really to bring it with me and to tell it to all the policymakers during the GA next Friday. I will be happy. Just give me the sentence, one sentence.
Yes, of course, we have to have that. So I'd love you to tell them that fighting for children's rights without children is not fighting for their rights. Just that. Just speak.
Michelle.
My statement will probably be that we should get involved more with children because they are the next generation.
The floor is yours, Miss Lilith.
I think you should say that
Lilith, I will ask you a question. If you are a ministry today, you are the president of the Republic, the president, of the United States, or you are the big chief of the world, what is the action? What are you going to do?
I'm going to try and stop the climate crisis. And when I try and stop it, children should be able to decide how to stop it in a way that won't hurt them.
Wow. Wonderful. So I have 5 wonderful things. I will recite to you first, and it will be my last point. And also, it's do everything you can to make sure that you have on board, and to take care about the most affected, including indigenous children. Maya, this is one. Sophia, to make sure that young girls and all the action you are undertaken are really seen. Even you think that they are not big, for me they are big. And we need to amplify what you are doing and to make sure they are extended, scaled up, and so on. And we'll do. Brian, speaking about children's rights without children is not children's rights. I love that. Michelle, involving children and girls in all the decision-making process. And Lilith, when she will be president of the world, what is important, she will stop the climate crisis, but with the children, because children know the way how to stop it. I think this is what I heard, and I promise you that this I will, in addition to the other point we discussed, I will really deliver them on next Friday during front of all these policymakers. I want to tell you many, many thanks, and you are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful activists, and you make me having hope, After this meeting, you are my energy. Thank you so much. Miguel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Najat. And thank you also to Michelle, to Maya, to Sophia, to Brian, and to Lilith, and to all children who participated today, who provided recommendations, suggestions for the report and for this event. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We work for you and now also with you. Thank you so much. And if you didn't have the chance to follow the entire event, you can find it on our YouTube, on our Facebook and YouTube channels, and also we are going to send it again, and you can share it with your friends for them also to be aware and learn more about climate action and about your recommendations. Thank you so much for being with us today. Have a lovely weekend.
Record